All right. I think we're live here, Matt. Ball Don't Lie is back in the flesh. I thought there was going to be like a countdown or something because I've used StreamYard before. I guess not, but nevertheless, we are here, and we're going to be doing our thing here. So, sorry about that. I had the YouTube thing playing at the same time, too. Both of my ears, no good. But I promise that this will be cleaner the rest of the way than that intro. But don't call it a comeback. We're here talking about the NBA playoffs. We're going to be breaking down some of the drama here too, Matt. Just give the fans, what's the deal with the NBA jersey? Why the hell is it backwards?
So I put it on backwards because right now I'm embarrassed to be a Sixers fan. I'm only going to support Joel Embiid tonight. It's going to be a stressful night if we win, whatever. But Joel Embiid is the only reason we're here, so I'm just supporting Embiid, not necessarily the Sixers. Also, quick shout out to Donovan McNabb. Everybody say hi to Donovan. We got life-size Donovan over there as well. So everybody say hello. It's good to be back on the pod.
Definitely. And let's not forget, this is a acclaimed, award-winning podcast voted by the peers on Penn State Sports Night. Me and Matt are old and irrelevant, so we are not in Penn State Sports Night anymore. That's great for content reasons because we can say what the fuck we want now. We can curse. I don't have Dean Harden on my ass. Shout out Marie, though. Great woman. So, this is going to be, almost like Ball Don't Lie after hours, I guess, except it's 4 p.m. on Friday late afternoon. But let's get into the content like always. We got these cool little banners now around the association. If you have any comments and things of that nature, be sure to leave them. Any questions you have, we are here to answer them. And we did not think Al Horford was going to get mentioned at all during this podcast, at least off of pure relevancy, not just purely bashing on him. But he's involved in a trade with Brad Stevens, his first move as the now GM of the Boston Celtics. He's going to be sending Kemba Walker the 16th overall pick in this year's draft and a 2025 second-round pick for, of course, the one and only Al Horford, Moses Brown, and a 2023 second-round pick. Of course, Woj broke this just a few hours ago leading up to this. Matt, I'm going to give you the floor here. What was your initial reaction?
Dude, how fucking desperate is Brad Stevens that he, in his first move as executive, is going for Al Horford to bring him back? Al Horford didn't want to be in Boston. He left Boston because he hated it so much. Now he's going back because they're so desperate for any kind of big man who can play a little bit of defense, who isn't Tristan Thompson. Gave up Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker was really disappointing this year for them. He was injured a lot. But still, that's I'm sure that would be a trade asset more for Oklahoma City than anything else. And then the 16th pick in the draft, of course, the Thunder are stocking up on first-round picks. No matter what happens, they're going to have a gajillion of them. The Celtics, I mean, this move is just made out of pure desperation. Brad Stevens is desperate right off the bat. He says he doesn't have a coach yet, and he's already making horrible trades. This is not going to go well for Brad Stevens. If this trade is a sign of anything, it's not going to go well for him.
This whole situation was kind of interesting. I understand Danny Ainge wanting to pick up and leave after the season they had. I wouldn't blame him. But then to be like, yeah, Brad Stevens is our GM. Now we're looking for a head coach. They still haven't found that, which is, I guess, okay because a lot of teams, we'll get into it later, are still looking for head coaches as well. Maybe it's because a lot of these top assistants are still in the playoffs, and those are guys that are going to be getting interviews at the end of the day. But I don't mind them trading Kemba Walker. I get it. He's a depreciating asset at this point. If you want to get into accounting terms here, he's a guy who unfortunately is on the wrong side of 30. He's had some knee issues. I believe only played 43 games this season and really only looked like a shell of himself. I don't even mind trading for Al Horford either in particular here because he is on an expiring deal, only getting paid $14.5 million this year. I believe the last year of his deal as well. So Al Horford does make more sense for that team. He fits well. I do think that he will fit well and help their big man woes in Boston. But I'm going to say this. This draft class is going to be probably on paper one of the more deep stacked draft classes in quite some time, Matt. So I'm kind of wondering, why the hell do you give up the 16th pick in the draft and Kemba Walker to get Moses Brown, who I'm sure anyone listening is probably doesn't even know who the fuck that is, and Al Horford? You gave up a first and Kemba to get Al Horford?
That's what I'm saying. They gave up you brought up the accounting term earlier, the depreciating asset in Kemba Walker. Al Horford is depreciating more, and he's older than Kemba Walker. I understand it fills more of a need for them at a big man, but Jesus Christ, Al Horford is your solution? That's the best thing you got? And the 16th pick, like you said? Rough start for Brad Stevens.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's fair because the Boston Celtics can't draft to save their lives. I know they hate on Tatum and Brown, but those dudes were the 3rd overall picks in the draft. Like, it's pretty hard not to hit on a top 5 pick. Whereas you look at the one draft class, they drafted like Romeo Langford, they drafted like Carson Edwards, Robert Williams, the Time Lord. Like, man, these guys suck. And yet these are guys that they're depending on to play like actual minutes for this team. No wonder they're garbage.
Exactly. And Peyton Pritchard, who you were high on, but I said he was going to be trash. They've been horrible ever since they drafted Tatum. They don't know. I mean, whatever.
All right. We will shout out Craig Pollock here. Show his comment, give him some love, saying Moses Brown is 21, is under contract for 4 years, like $6.5 million years. Also saying too that Brad Stevens was desperate to get Kemba off the cap. You're absolutely right. I don't actually blame them for trading Kemba Walker. I just think that this was maybe not the move. I just think giving up that 16th overall pick in the draft, to me, was a little sus. I am someone who likes keeping draft pick. And this is another first-round draft pick the Thunder have. I mean, I know that they have draft picks for days. They're looking at the 7th grade AAU games to see who's going to be the next franchise player on this team. But, I guess good for the Thunder, I guess. But I just don't think this trade made a whole lot of sense. The idea of getting rid of Kemba, I think, made sense, Mac, but I just think that this wasn't the best move to give up a first-round pick just to get rid of him.
Yeah, shout out Craig. What's up, buddy? But this is just it's a terrible move for the Celtics. Brad Stevens is kind of a panic move in my opinion because he knows Kemba Walker does not fit there anymore. He's not worth the money they're paying him. But then you're going to bring in Al Horford, who's also not worth the money that Elton Brand is paying him. So I don't know. I mean, this is just it's a terrible trade, but the Celtics were so desperate, like I said.
Yeah, but moving on, let's talk about another former Celtic, Rick Carlisle. I bet you guys didn't know he actually did play in the NBA for quite some time, was Larry Bird's boy back in the day. But he is no longer going to be the Dallas head coach. He is officially resigning. He's out skis. He don't want to be there no more. And then apparently there's a lot more drama in Dallas as well here because Luka Doncic was apparently having issues with the front office, and that's why Donnie Nelson, he's going to be done too. So Mark Cuban's got a lot of positions to fill this offseason, Matt. He said he's going to prioritize finding the next president of basketball ops first before finding the head coach. Of course, I think Luka Doncic, maybe he won't be specifically saying what he wants here, but I definitely think he's got some sort of say, and to an extent, they're going to obviously hire someone that he likes. Matt, I want to ask you first, what do you think about all these departures? And also, too, do you think Rick Carlisle is going to get another head coaching job, or do you think this is probably going to be it for him?
No, I think Carlisle will get another job. I think he's got a lot of pedigree. I mean, you don't win a championship on accident, so I think he'll get another job, especially with all the openings now. So I think he will get another job. And as far as all the departures from Dallas, clearly something wasn't working. There was clearly a disconnect there in the front office and the organization, up in the high executive front office there. Donnie Nelson clearly wasn't getting the job done. That Porzingis trade wasn't working out. Mark Cuban also was non-committal on anybody, but he wasn't going to fire anybody either. So I think in both these situations, it was a mutual parting of ways, more so Carlisle than Nelson. But I think it's a tough situation because these were good guys. Carlisle's a good coach, but who are you going to bring in that's on the streets right now that is better than Carlisle and is going to be able to fit better with Luka than Carlisle was?
Yeah, I mean, Rick Carlisle brought this team an NBA championship. We know how hard that is. And also, I believe, took them twice to the NBA Finals, if I'm not mistaken, too. I believe he was the head coach there in 2006 when they lost to the Miami Heat. And also that Dallas Mavericks team, too. I mean, they ran through the championship Lakers team. They ran through the Big Three of OKC. And then they also ran through the Miami Heat, the actual Big Three. So that was probably one of the best runs we've really seen from a team in quite some time, Matt. So Rick Carlisle is a very good head coach. I believe he will get a job as long as he wants to keep coaching. He is on the older side. He's actually low-key one of the older coaches in the NBA, so maybe he is done, but I don't think so. I heard the Pelicans could be an interesting fit. I even heard that the Portland Trailblazers, if maybe Damian Lillard is interested in having a guy like Rick Carlisle there. We'll see, and we'll talk about that as well. But this Dallas job, I do think will be highly coveted because they are a very stable organization for the most part. And let's not forget, they have a top 5 player, a guy who's maybe not top 5, sorry, a guy who was one of 5 players to make All NBA this season in Luka Doncic. I think any coach is going to want to get his hands on him.
Absolutely. And I think, whoever takes this job, it's going to be a tough situation to try and figure out the cap space too, especially with Porzingis' deal. And they just have so many white European foreign players, so it's going to be tough to figure out too. But Porzingis, clearly, it's not going to fit there anymore. If he's going to play like a 7-3 sharpshooter, then that's not going to fit with Luka Doncic. They need to try and move on from him. Now, whether anybody is going to want him is a different story. I think it's going to be a tricky situation. Yes, it's appealing because of Luka Doncic, but it's also not appealing because of all the other circumstances as well.
And Matt, let me say this, because here on Ball Don't Lie, we keep it real, we keep it 100, and we do miss. We do eventually sometimes, get caught red-handed. We do fuck up some predictions here, but you were actually pretty spot on. I was kind of disagreeing with you a little bit on this one, but I want to give you credit. On our last ever episode with Penn State Sports Night on Ball Don't Lie, be sure to check out that content. You talked about how Luka Doncic was in quite a bad situation there, and I was able to archive that clip. We're going to play here right now just to show the people how right you were about this one.
Well, this might be one that you raise your eyebrows at a bit, but I'm going to go with Luka Doncic. Kristaps Porzingis is a great running mate with Doncic when he actually plays. Outside of Pingus Tingus, this team really struggles to play defense both on the perimeter and in the paint. They are about as inconsistent of an outside shooting team as there is, including Luka Doncic. The big men on this team are skinny and get bullied by pretty much any competent big man on another team. They aren't even strapped for cash yet, which, Luka hasn't been given his ungodly large contract extension yet, which I'm assuming he's going to get sometime soon. Yeah, they got to go get someone to help him out, man. I don't care who it is, just any player that can help him out. Go slot alongside Porzingis and Luka Doncic. They need the help. Porzingis is inconsistent with staying on the floor. Luka needs help.
Gotta love that technology, right, Matt? Able to get those sound bites in like that with the smoothness, if you will. But you were definitely right on the nail. Luka Doncic definitely needs help there, and whoever the hell they're going to hire as basketball president of basketball ops, they're definitely going to need to find some better pieces around Luka Doncic. Tim Hardaway Jr. cannot be the second best scorer on this team.
Absolutely not. And, people are starting to call that the Tim Hardaway Jr. trade, not the Kristaps Porzingis trade anymore. So yeah. It's tough, but I mentioned in that clip 2 months ago that, the Mavericks aren't even strapped for cash now. But with Luka pretty much saying, I'm going to sign the Supermax deal this summer, they're going to be strapped for cash, especially with the Porzingis deal still in tow. It's going to be rough to try and figure out that roster. Yeah,
it's almost like, when those NFL teams, like the formula is to get a guy on his rookie deal, quarterback on his rookie deal, and build a team around him. That's not going to be the case with the Mavericks anymore. Luka's going to be on that Supermax deal. He's going to be eligible for, I believe, 5 years, $200 million, Matt. That's a whole lot of moolah. And eventually they're going to be able to build that team around him. But looking at the comments here, we got to give the people what they want, of course. Shout out to Hunter Pearson here, another former Hunter. I got to shout him out. He said, how worried should I be as a Spurs fan that teams are going to come after my future head coach and Becky Hammon? That's a great transition into our next points, Matt, because there's a lot of head coaching vacancies. A lot of assistant coaches, of course, are going to get the heads up here. Becky Hammon's kind of been going through it for a while. She has been interim head coach for some times, also coached the Summer League team for the Spurs. But there's a good chance that she's going to be getting some interviews, and maybe she even gets a head coaching job.
Yeah, I think she definitely deserves one, especially at this point. Even I think it was the game this year that she took over for Pop because he got ejected. So I think Becky Hammon's definitely ready for a job. Now, whether it's with the Spurs or somebody else remains to be seen. I think it's going to be with the Spurs. I think she'll stay loyal to San Antonio, loyal to Greg Popovich. Whenever he decides to step down, I think she'll be the head coach of the Spurs. Hunter, you shouldn't be worried. She's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I actually 100% agree with you on that theory. I don't know if we've ever talked about it, but I 100% think Becky Hammon's waiting for Popovich to get the outskis, and then eventually she'll take over there. I think that's why she's not accepting any jobs. But you got Craig Pollock here also saying that Cuban would 100% be the one to hire Becky Hammon. I do agree with that. He's one of the more innovative owners out there. I don't think he's afraid to hire a woman at all, in my opinion, because if we're going to keep it a stack, I think a lot of teams are. But also wanted to shout out here Andrew Bont. The Knicks threw KP in the Dallas like a live grenade. Luka to the Knicks. I think it's going to be pretty damn hard. Mark Cuban said that he would divorce his wife before he traded Luka Doncic. So I think a lot of dominoes would need to fall before we see that happen. But you can keep dreaming. That's fine. Also,
Bont's one of those delusional Knicks fan. It's just not. He thinks everybody that could be rumored to go somewhere is going to the Knicks, and it's just not happening. Luka's not going to the Knicks, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yep. Shout out Zach Gershman here. Zach on Sports, the return with, I believe that's 4 explanation points. We appreciate it, Zach. We actually took one of your ideas once here and made an all-NBA team about it too. Don't worry, we'll get into that later. Kelly Warner, of course, here. Matt was wrong when he chose to be a Sixers fan. And follow that up with A Life of Pain. Anyways, though, we also got, I believe, Brooke Steak here. She gave probably one of the worst takes in Bald Online history, but probably led to one of the best sound bites. Tristan Thompson, MVP. I don't know what she's talking about MVP, because that does not stand for most valuable player in this situation, Matt.
Yeah, I don't even want to comment on Tristan Thompson, bro. I got more press things to talk about.
Maybe most valuable player off the court, if you get what I'm saying, with the definition of player. But anyways, though, let's talk about some of these other coaching situations here, and let's look at the New Orleans Pelicans, because Stan Van Gundy, I was kind of skeptical when they originally hired him. And he's going to be a one and done, not like a college basketball star, though, Matt. He's just one and done as a head coach. He just got fired. I don't think he's getting another job. But speaking of some of the replacements, you got Jason Kidd, potentially, the assistant for the Lakers, does have head coaching experience with Brooklyn and Milwaukee. Jacques Vaughn, who also stepped in for Brooklyn after they, fired. I'm blanking on the name right now here. But he did step in last season. And did a pretty solid job with that team. They did still remain in the playoffs. But the really interesting one here is Teresa Weatherspoon, who, we talk about Becky Hammon, a coach, as the top, female head coach candidate, perhaps. But Teresa Weatherspoon here, and this one's not a complete shock here, because she has been an assistant with the Pelicans since 2019. So during the Alvin Gentry era and the Stan Van Gundy era. So they've kept her around for quite some time. Clearly, this organization is high on her. 2019 Hall of Fame inductee, won a national championship with Louisiana Tech, also was a head coach there for a couple of years as well, played in the WNBA, played overseas, and, you kind of wonder, apparently there's reports that Zion is a big fan of hers, calls her Spoon, I guess, for short. I guess that's the nickname, people be giving out here with your last name, but because I think Weather would be a little weird. But anyways, Matt, what do you think? Do you think that this is also a desirable head coaching vacancy here?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if this is as desirable as some other places. Zion is obviously attractive. Brandon Ingram's an attractive piece as well. But this team can't play a lick of defense. They also have bloated contracts on Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe. They're in a tough situation right now, Cavs, because they don't really know how to figure it out. They don't have anywhere to go. Lonzo Ball is also a restricted free agent, so they're going to have to figure out if they can match whatever deal he gets this summer. I think they're in a tough situation right now. I don't know how they're going to build this team into something better other than through the draft and hoping they hit on lottery picks, because they really don't have the cap space to go out and get anybody in free agency. Now that New Orleans is a top destination anyway. So I think they're going to have to get most of their work done by trying to manipulate the cap a little bit with trades, and then also trying to hit on some young guys in the draft.
Well, I think you actually brought up an interesting point that New Orleans isn't necessarily the biggest destination for free agents. Well, they're also one of the lowest earning, revenue local market teams in basketball. And even with Zion Williamson, they still are. So that brings an interesting question up, Matt, because apparently when their lease goes up in 2024, there is some belief now that they might move. Is this going to be the Seattle Sonics or the Seattle Pelicans? What do you think about that, Matt?
I think this is the easiest transition for the NBA to make back to Seattle. If a team isn't there by 2024, I think it's the easiest transition. I mean, they're already in the Western Conference. Nobody in New Orleans knows or cares that they have a basketball team. Seattle is starving for basketball. They have been since they left for Oklahoma City. And they already have a new arena there too, which is important for finances because of the new NHL expansion team going in next year, the Seattle Kraken. So you do have an updated arena that will fit NBA standards today. A nice place for them to play. I think that bringing the Sonics back is the best best thing here. That franchise would be their third different name change too in the last 15 years, because they were the Hornets. Then they decided to be the Pelicans for some reason. Strange fucking name. Now they're going to be back. Probably, I'd assume they go back to the Sonics if they go to Seattle. I think it's the easiest transition for the NBA to get back to Seattle.
Yeah, it's weird how like the Charlotte Bobcats are the Charlotte Hornets, but then in reality, it's like, but then the New Orleans Hornets weren't actually the Charlotte. It's a whole clusterfuck there. Yeah, I think that the move does make a lot of sense. New Orleans doesn't seem like this is a team that wants a city that wants a basketball team. They're really invested in football, both collegiately and professionally there. So I think football runs that town, and I think that as a result, the Pelicans probably get ran out of Bayou.
Yeah, I for their sake, I hope so. I hope they do get run out, because New Orleans, they don't give a shit about basketball. They don't. It's their football through and through. They're the Saints and they're the LSU Tigers, baby. That's all they care about.
Yeah, and let's see. There's also rumors out there that Zion Williamson, some of his family members don't even want him to play for that organization or not. But I think like the Luka Doncic situation, I don't really expect that to actually happen. They're not giving away Zion Williamson for shit. So
not unless they absolutely have to.
But anyways, though, a superstar that could potentially be on the move, Damian Lillard. Terry Stotts recently just got canned as well. And similarly to what we were talking about, predicting things here on Ball Don't Lie, we also got this one right too, Matt. This was also from our last ever episode. I'm going to play the clip here, us hinting at the fact that Terry Stotts, was in fact on the hot seat. I have an interesting point here, an interesting theory. Terry Stotts, great coach. I think he's very, very good at his job. But last couple of years, hasn't really lived up to it. Now, the Western Conference Finals appearance, starting to be in the rearview mirror a little bit. They got a guy in David Vanderpool, who Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum have said they love this guy. They thought he should have gotten the head coaching job in Minnesota. They thought he got robbed. He has won that locker room over somewhat. Do you think they make a coaching change this season doesn't end well? And they did. They actually did, in fact, make a coaching change there. And they're still going to be looking for guys as well. Apparently, Jason Kidd is someone who Damian Lillard wanted, but then they said, no, we are not hiring him. Or I believe actually Jason Kidd said he didn't want that job, which is even more telling because that means that he's not so sure Damian Lillard's even going to be there, Matt. Do you think, because we both think Damian Lillard's not going to win a championship in Portland. We know he's a loyal guy, and he's tried to be as loyal as he possibly can. But how much is too much for Dame?
I don't know. I feel like this would be enough, but we've seen Dame in the past say, I'm loyal to this team. I want to stay in Portland for the rest of my career. I want to bring a championship to Portland, which is commendable. But this team isn't going anywhere. I'm going to be upfront. They don't have any. They don't have a solid second option behind them. CJ McCollum's a good player, but he's not a second legitimate star. You can't win if your second best player is CJ McCollum, no matter how good Damian Lillard is. It hasn't even been able to get him out of the first round last couple of years. Barely squeaked into the playoffs last year. I think if I was Damian Lillard, I would request a trade, try to get out of there. But I don't necessarily know that he will. I think he could have better options lined up for him if he does want to request a trade. And this is just me speaking from my Sixers fandom. But do you think the Blazers would stay with me, Hunter? Do you think they would take a trade where it's Ben Simmons and Tyrese Maxey and a first-round pick for Damian Lillard? Do you think they would take that?
That would be a resounding fuck no for that trade, Matt.
Oh, come on, man.
But I love the interaction here in the comments. Hunter here saying that Dame to the Spurs, that might be a bit of a homer pick there. And then Andrew here saying we're on the streets, Dame loves Tibbs. But I do think both those teams realistically do have assets to get him. It's definitely going to be your fire sale, highest bidder here. But Matt, and anyone in the comments too, if you think there's any other realistic destinations that Dame can go to, or you just want to, say some shit just to kind of stirs the pot a little bit, leave comments down low. We're going to try to respond as many as we can, Matt. But where are some places you can see Dame heading if he does get traded?
I think pretty much a lot of Eastern Conference teams make sense to me. I think it's an easier conference to get through to the finals. I even like the possibility of him joining the Knicks. I think they have a lot of assets to give up, and they do have quite the bit of cap space at the moment, so they could get Damian Lillard to the Knicks. I don't know if that's necessarily a better fit for him than the Blazers. I could be kind of a lateral move, but I also look at a team like the Miami Heat could use a point guard. The Lakers obviously that's obviously the most obvious connection is the Lakers, because they could always use a point guard, get LeBron off his never 100% again ankle again. So, I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't think Dame's going anywhere. Not at this moment. I don't.
Yeah, I think they're going to try their best to keep Dame. I think unless he outwardly says trade me, why would they trade him? It just doesn't really make sense. That's all the Blazers really have at this point is Damian Lillard. But this team definitely needs some retooling because they probably are one of the worst defensive teams in the league and solely made the postseason because they can score the ball. Like, their defense is so bad, and they got completely exposed against Denver.
Yeah, and thank God they have Robert Covington, though, because imagine how bad that defense would be without Robert Covington.
Yeah, Robert Covington really just hold down the fort here in Portland. But anyways, though, let's talk about a guy who we did mention, LeBron James. Maybe they'll be teammates with Damian Lillard one day. I'm sure he would definitely like that. I definitely would as a Laker fan. I think they would quite literally give up everything and anything other than LeBron AD to get Damian Lillard. And I think it makes a lot of sense. But I won't let my fandom get in the way too much here. But LeBron did make some comments saying how he thought this season was rushed and that as a result it kind of hurt the product of the NBA. We're seeing a lot of guys getting hurt. I believe like 8 or 9 All-Stars missed at least one playoff game this year, which I believe is the most in NBA history. Now, this isn't LeBron, playing, the guy being like, oh, I told you so, after the fact it happened. He did make these same comments before the season started. So it wasn't like LeBron James, was just being like that guy. But what do you think, Matt? Do you think that LeBron was right in this sense? Or do you think at the end of the day, the NBA did what they had to do?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think the NBA definitely did what they had to do to squeeze in a season and try to make the timeline somewhat consistent for normal for next year, which is what they're on track to do. They're slated to start the season again in mid-October like they usually are. I think it's what they had to do. At the end of the day, you're professional athletes. Like, you should be able to play a game pretty much whenever. Not whenever, but a 72-game season within 5 months is not unreasonable. It's not. Did a lot of guys get hurt? Yes. But is that different from any other season? I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I don't think, again, obviously, I'm not a professional athlete. I can only look at it from an analytical sense from the outside. But from the outside looking in, I mean, this just seems like LeBron's complaining because LeBron can, and people are going to listen to him because he's fucking LeBron, and he can say whatever the hell he wants, and probably be right. I think the season format might have had a little something to do with it, but there's injuries every year, and there's torn ACLs every year. His sprained ankle was not the cause of a 72-game season. It's because somebody fell on his ankle going for a loose ball. So I don't necessarily agree with it. I think the NBA did what they had to do. And I would love to know, honestly, what LeBron would have done in this situation.
That's a fair point. You could always say like these things like, oh, do this, but it's like, well, what would you have done? Here's my take. I think LeBron is honestly completely right. But at the same time, though, I also think the NBA is completely right. Because we talk about all the time in this podcast, Matt, money talks and the almighty dollar, and the NBA had to do what they had to do in order to keep this league afloat and to make money despite all the lost time they had during the pandemic and missing all those games and stuff like that. So I think, unfortunately, as a result, we have seen it. A lot of players have been getting hurt. It sucks for the game because it seems like now it's like the team that's the healthiest in the playoffs at this point is going to be the one that probably wins the championship. But I also do think there is such thing as sour grapes here, and LeBron is probably a little upset that injuries derailed the Lakers' chances of winning a title this year.
Yeah, you think? I mean, also let's look at AD's injury history. AD has a pretty lengthy injury history, and also sitting out a lot of games. And LeBron obviously has not missed that many games in his career, but since he's been on the Lakers, he had that. I think it was a groin injury his first year with the Lakers. He missed a lot of time. It propelled them out of the playoffs. And this year, obviously, missing a lot of time with the sprained ankle. And then him saying, I'm so tired of LeBron being such a drama fucking queen. He's like, oh, when he got hit in the eye in the play-in tournament, he's like, oh, I saw 3 runs just shot them to 1. Shut the fuck up, dude. No, you didn't. And him saying, I'm never going to be 100% again. Dude, it's a sprained ankle. You're going to be okay. You're one of the best athletes that ever has walked this earth. And you tell me you're never going to recover from a sprained fucking ankle? Kiss my ass, dude.
Yeah, I can't defend LeBron. I do think he's a little dramatic. I can't. He's not in the school of a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant where, like, nothing phases him. But at the same time, though, he still is one of the greatest players of all time. And at the end of the day, he is someone that will show up no matter what. But speaking of LeBron James, he was second team All NBA this season, and the All NBA teams did in fact come out. We're not going to go through each of the picks here, Matt, because if you want to see them, fucking look it up yourself. So I want to know, Matt, were there any snubs on that list or any guys that you thought, maybe shouldn't have made it that did?
I think Tatum deserved to be on an All-NBA team. I think he was one of the guys that kind of got snubbed. And then you look at the first team All-NBA team. What a crock of shit. Kawhi Leonard played one more game than Embiid this year, and he was a first-team All-NBA player, even though Embiid was second in the MVP voting. I don't give a shit about positions. I don't care that it's up to have only one center on the team. NBA's too rigid in this. It's like baseball where they're so conservative about everything they can't change anything. Dude, Embiid was the best player all year long. He was better than Jokic all year long when he actually played. Jokic actually won the MVP because he was the most available player, not the most valuable player. Embiid deserved to be a first-team All-NBA player. I don't care how rich the positions are. Embiid was the best player on the court this year when he played. And then to say, we're not going to give it to him because he didn't play as much games. Kawhi played one more game than he did, and he's first-team All-NBA? I don't believe that for a second. I think it's crap. I think Embiid definitely deserved to be first-team All-NBA. That's my rant about that.
I agree with you. I think that Joel Embiid should have been first-team All-NBA as well. I did fill out my own ballot, what I personally would have done if I was a voter, and I had Embiid and Jokic first team. I just put them both in there. I was fine with that.
And that's fine. Put one of them at forward. It's not a big deal. Nobody's going to be like, oh, Embiid didn't play forward all year. Why did you put him at it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I agree with you with Tatum. I believe I had Tatum in there. I didn't really like Jimmy Butler being on there, if I'm being honest. I would have taken Bam Adebayo over him if I was going to put a Miami Heat player in there. For the most part, I think Devin Booker should have got a spot. You can take off whoever the hell you want. I think Devin, love Bradley Beal. You can argue who's a better player, but you're going to put the guy who was one game away from having the best record in basketball, Devin Booker, who barely missed any games, over, and you're going to put Bradley Beal over him, whose team was barely in the playoffs. I think that's kind of ridiculous considering these guys are equally as good as each other. Chris Paul did get in second team All NBA, but I also thought Devin Booker was robbed of a spot. Even then, I would have taken even Donovan Mitchell over Bradley Beal this year. The Jazz did have the best record in the league.
Yeah, I think mostly Bradley Beal got on there because of his, he was second in the league in points per game this year. He was pretty consistently up there at the top of, so it'd be weird not to reward him for that. Although I personally wouldn't have an issue with, like you said, either Mitchell or Booker being on there instead of Bradley Beal. It's a tough situation, and no matter what happens, somebody's going to get their feelings hurt every year. It's the same song and dance. It's the same thing with all-star teams too. I mean, you can talk snubs out the ass, but it's all about perspective. And I think there's no way to get it perfectly because somebody's going to get their feelings hurt no matter what.
Yeah. I know I'm a little hard on him, but I don't know how the hell Paul George made it either. You're going to take Paul George over Devin Booker this year? Okay, sure. But anyways, though, Rookie of the Year was a bit of a debate as well between LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards. Matt, I think I know where you're leaning here. But of course, LaMelo did end up winning it over Edwards. But who would have you picked?
I'm surprised LaMelo won. I would have picked Edwards because if you're going to set – all right, I'm going to go back to the Jokic Embiid thing for 1 second. If you're going to set the precedent for Jokic winning MVP over Embiid was because he played the whole season and Embiid missed 21 games, that's fine. But then how could you pick a guy who missed a month and have me pick to win Rookie of the Year over a guy who played all year and who was also outstanding in Anthony Edwards, who got much better as the year progressed? I don't understand that because you're going to set a precedent for one thing, but for a different award, it's going to be, who's going to get, the most views on House of Highlights. It's crap.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I thought you were going to say LaMelo. I would have picked LaMelo personally. Now, again, I also would have picked Curry to win MVP. So I wouldn't have won Jokic or Embiid just because I thought Steph Curry was the best player in basketball that season. And I've talked about how bad that Warriors team is. The fact that they were even in the playoffs, in my opinion, was absolutely insane. Or fighting for a playoff spot. But I think for LaMelo, I look more at impact per se. I think both of them put up great numbers individually. You can even argue Edwards was a little better. But I just thought the fact that LaMelo Ball, I thought really brought the best out of his team and propelled them into the playoffs. Into the play-in, I should say. That's why I would have picked LaMelo. I just thought he was the better player between the two. But I do understand that's a fair point where you're saying how the two different things contradict each other. It is very narrative-driven league. I will say that.
Yeah, and in terms of, LaMelo being the one to propel his team to more of a contention situation, I understand that. But I don't think that has ever been part of the criteria for Rookie of the Year. It's always been who was the best rookie all year. I don't think it has ever been, what have they done for their team? It's always been the guy who has put up, who has played the most consistently well all year and who has been available and who has stayed healthy and who has been the guy. And, if it's such a tough situation and so sticky. Both these guys are obviously great players, and I think LaMelo will probably end up having the better career than Anthony Edwards. But in terms of Rookie of the Year, I just don't think that, if the part of the criteria was LaMelo led his team to a better season, a more successful season, then that's crap because you can't expect a rookie to carry a team. That shouldn't be part of the criteria, and I don't think it ever has been part of the criteria.
Yeah, well, I think seeing what John Morant did last year maybe kind of changed things a little bit because the Grizzlies were really good, and he was the biggest reason why at that point guard position, even though, Zion Williamson statistically was better. He just didn't play nearly as many games. But at the same time, though, John Morant got the edge there. So I don't know. I think that the overall credentials of basketball can be better. I just think that when you look at when it comes to voting and stuff like that, it seems like it's a free for all, and that's why there's a lot of different opinions and different ways people view it, I guess.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the playoffs now, things that are actually happening, if you will. We're going to talk about the Brooklyn Nets and the Bucks series. They're going to be in a win or go home situation coming up here. Game 7 will be tomorrow between these teams. But a very exciting last couple of games, despite the fact that there's no Kyrie Irving, James Harden on whatever percent he is health-wise, Kevin Durant in Game 5 without Kyrie Irving, with a hobble James Harden, I'm going to say this, he probably had the best game he has ever played in his entire life. 49 points on 23 shots. How, Sway? How is he going to do this, Matt? 23 shots, that's ridiculous. I don't think people understand how efficient that is. But it got people talking a little bit. I personally think it's an overreaction, but I want to hear what you think. Do you think that game made Kevin Durant the best player in the NBA?
Well, I think it just proved what we've all known for years, that he's the best scorer in the NBA. I don't think that necessarily makes him the best player, but it's just so easy for him to score. I think he scores with the most ease with the least amount of effort. I think he's an incredible scorer. There's no doubt about that, and I think he's still the best scorer in the NBA, but I don't know if that necessarily makes him the best player.
I agree with you. I'm going to be someone who's late on the LeBron James best player trade. I was late with Kobe. I'll be late with LeBron too. Until I see otherwise, that LeBron James is not definitively the best player in the league, I'm just going to keep saying he's the best player because value also matters. That's why we talk about Chris Paul in the MVP conversation. His ability to make everyone around him better, his ability to quite literally single-handedly carry a franchise. Kevin Durant did this for one game. Let's calm down, everybody. But he is a phenomenal player. I think he's the second best player in basketball, but I'm not ready to call him number one just yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that when LeBron does start to decrease, I think Durant could take that role over. But then you also have to look at from the perspective of Kevin Durant, is that he's always had great help next to him. He's had elite superstar level players next to him. Obviously going to the Warriors, now going to Brooklyn. He teamed up with Kyrie, got James Harden to join him. I mean, now we're just seeing him pretty much play by himself, and it's not really going well. Yes, he's playing well. He's put up the individual stats, but they're tied 3-3 in a series that, quite frankly, after the first two games, you thought they were going to blow them out of the water. And the Bucks have won 3 of the last 4 games in this series. The Bucks, quite honestly, are not that impressive of a team, and they've struggled mightily in so many areas in this series, and yet they're still going to a Game 7. So I think before we start calling Kevin Durant the best player in the league, let's see if he can actually carry a team.
Yeah, let's see if they can win this Game 7 here. I mean, they had a chance to close them out, and they didn't. They got embarrassed in Game 6. It didn't even seem like Brooklyn was ready to play in that game at all. That game was over after the first half. But I will give credit where it's due. Giannis and Chris Middleton, 2 guys who, were kind of frauds, if you will, and really didn't show up in the playoffs. They've been very good in this series. I thought for Giannis, this was a series he needed to dominate. Not only for his own self-ego and things like that, but also because looking at this team, the Brooklyn Nets are so small and fragile in the paint. And I love what Giannis did. He didn't shoot a single three in that last game. And I fucking loved him, Matt, because he should be getting his ass in the paint and dunking on these motherfuckers. That's what he's got to do. Like, Giannis is one of the most dominant paint scorers, maybe the most dominant one now in today's NBA. Like, when he is downhill going full throttle at the basket, that is when he's at his best. He's currently averaging 30.5 and 12.9, 57% shooting from the field. Chris Middleton doing his thing as well, averaging 24.5, 4 assists, 8.5 rebounds on 36% shooting from three. In particular, had 38 points, I believe, last night as well. Has this been the key to the series, Matt? Is Chris Middleton, Giannis doing what he does in the regular season, and Chris Middleton elevating? Is this what's really kind of helped this Bucks team so far?
Well, absolutely, especially the playoffs, especially the last 10 years or so. It has been, yes, you have to have a star player in this league, but you also have to have dudes that help out. You have to have a second and third guy that can score the basketball, that can play great defense, and that's what the Bucks have right now. Drew Holiday stepped up last night. Chris Middleton stepped up last night, as you said. Chris Middleton is a key, absolutely, but it's also going to take Giannis to keep continuing to dominate in the paint, because when we've seen him, in Game 5, he kind of pussified himself. He was taking threes. He was taking shots. He was taking fadeaway jumpers, which the Nets will take all day, every day. You saw James Harden guarding him at the end of the game, and Giannis took a fall-away step-back jumper over James Harden. Dude, you're the Greek freak. You have at least 6 inches and at least probably 80 pounds on James Harden. Go dunk on him. Go to the paint, attack the paint. I understand he might not want to get fouled because he knows he can't shoot free throws because he's standing up there for 45 fucking seconds before he shoots the damn ball. But that being said, I think you can't be afraid to attack the basket. It's the same thing on with Ben Simmons right now. Probably not to the same scale, but Giannis needs to be able to be aggressive and get to the cup. And if he gets fouled, so be it.
James Harden's a pretty hefty guy, man. I don't think Giannis is 80 pounds on him. Harden might be
but you get what I'm saying, though. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
I forgot James Harden was spending too much time at the strip clubs in Houston before he, put on those weight before he got traded.
Yeah, eating all that Magic City food, it really kind of adds pounds, Matt. All those lemon pepper wings with Lou, I'm sure. But anyways, though, I do think that looking at this Bucks team, like you said, Giannis, don't make it complicated. Don't be playing cute out there. It's funny. I think a lot of the Bucks issues are going to be pretty similar to the Sixers issues right now. But yet, I know I got you irked a little bit there. But I think for the Bucks, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Giannis, get your ass in the paint, dominate there. You got shooters all on the outside. I believe the Bucks are top 5 in 3-point percentage. Don't make it hard on yourself. Do what you got to do to beat this team. And it seemed like the Bucks finally figured that out in Game 6.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough too because they haven't won a game in Brooklyn this entire series. And Lord knows what's going to happen in Brooklyn tomorrow. I'm sure Kevin Durant will have his type of game in the end. I don't expect James Harden to be held under 20 points again in this series. I just don't expect it to happen, especially in a Game 7. He's going to dish out the ball like he's been doing, but I don't expect him to have 16 points like he had last night. And what was it, 7 points in Game 5, maybe? So I think you can't count on that. I think you got to expect Harden to score more. And the Bucks just haven't put a full game together, except for last night in Game 6. They haven't had a full game where they've been consistently good start to finish in this series, and especially not in Brooklyn. So I don't know if I'm ready to pick the Bucks in that game tomorrow night.
Well, let me say that I'm playing a little devil advocate here, Matt. Can you expect Harden to play that much better? Because he's clearly hurt right now. I mean, I credit him for going out there and doing whatever he can for his team. Like, this is what you're supposed to do in the playoffs. And Kyrie Irving, who freaking knows if and when he's coming back. That ankle injury looked pretty bad. I love Glenn Baby Davis saying, like, I have, karma's a bitch, right? That was the ankle he used to stomp on the freaking, Lucky the Celtic. Yeah. Or whatever the fuck they want to call him there in TD Garden. But I just want to know, Matt, if they do, say, hypothetically win Game 7, do you think the Nets are realistically have a shot at winning the championship here?
I think they do because I just think they're the most talented team left, and especially if Kyrie does come back and the more healthy James Harden's hamstring gets, if it does get healthy, I think they're just the most equipped to win a championship. Whoever comes out in this second round between the Sixers and Hawks is clearly not not anywhere near where Brooklyn or Milwaukee is right now. And Milwaukee's not even that great of a team, and Brooklyn clearly has not played up to their standards, I don't think, especially with Kyrie out. I think they have a cakewalk to the NBA Finals. Whether they win the championship or not, I don't know. I think Phoenix is a legit team. I think they match up with Brooklyn pretty well. And Utah is also a pretty legit team, too, if they're able to come back in the series against the Clippers. I just think the Nets, in terms of the Eastern Conference, are the most complete team. And I think they win tomorrow night in Game 7. And I think whoever they play in the Eastern Conference Finals, whether it be the Hawks or my Sixers, I think it's a cakewalk for them. I think they get to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, guys, let us know who you think's going to win this Game 7 tomorrow, Brooklyn or Milwaukee. Here's the thing. I do agree. If all things were healthy and everything was equal, I think Brooklyn is the favorite to win the championship this year. But I think unless Kevin Durant does what he did in Game 5, I actually think the Bucks are going to win this series. I'm going Milwaukee in Game 7. I just think that, I don't trust this Nets team. They're scaring me. Like, think about it. KD played really well yesterday. He had like 35 and 10. Like, that's all you ask for Kevin Durant is to be a superstar, and he's doing that. And they still got freaking killed. They still got killed out there. And so I'm looking at this Nets team. We know they're not going to have Kyrie. Who knows what you're going to get out of James Harden at this point? I don't know. Look, if James Harden is all of a sudden healthy again, I think, I'm taking Brooklyn. But I have no idea. There's too many question marks here. I'm with you. I don't really like Milwaukee's team that much either, and that's why I'm like, oh, God, I guess Milwaukee. But I honestly think that they're the healthier team right now. It seems like they're getting a better feel about how to beat the Nets. And I think that Giannis has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He knows that his legacy is on the line in these playoffs as much as any players is right now. He's known as the guy who doesn't show up in the playoffs, the guy who, doesn't show up, afraid to guard Kevin Durant, afraid to guard Jimmy Butler, afraid to guard the best players. We've called him out on this podcast, Matt. But I think that they're going to silence him a little bit here. I think that by default, I'm actually going to take Milwaukee to win tomorrow.
I'm going to be honest, I would be shocked if Milwaukee wins tomorrow. But if Milwaukee does win tomorrow, my prediction I made in January on a PSSN segment about them my bold prediction was that the Brooklyn Nets would not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. So if the Bucks win tomorrow, that would come true, and I will definitely post that somewhere just to say I was right. But I would be shocked if the Bucks win tomorrow. I would be shocked.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee's going to take this one. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm keeping it buck here. But anyways, though, let's talk about your Philadelphia 76ers and how they absolutely collapsed yesterday, Matt. I'm not even gonna ask you a question here. I'm just gonna give the floor to you. Go ahead. Say what you want.
Okay, so here's my thing, Hunter. You say rank the order of who's the most to blame for the Sixers struggles. Ben Simmons, Doc Rivers, and Tobias Harris. So Doc Rivers is at the very, very top of that list. His bench lineups have been god awful and shit for the entire series. He's been leaving them out there for way, way too long. And we said, okay, no more all bench lineups. So we're going to do 4 bench players and 1 Tobias Harris. That has not worked out at all either. Just quit with the bench lineups. He's been babying Ben Simmons all series, defending him to the media, say, "Oh, you guys don't understand basketball. You guys don't understand. How about let's talk about what all he does." Well, look about how he's hurting you right now on the free throw line. If he even shot what he shot at the free throw line during the season, 60%, this series would be over. The Sixers would have already won. They'd be sitting on the couch waiting for the Eastern Conference Finals. If Ben Simmons could hit a fucking free throw, but he's not even shooting what he's shooting in the regular season. He's shooting 33% this series. In the playoffs. It's ridiculous. So Benson's easily number 2 to blame. He's not being aggressive. He's not going to the cup for the same reason that I talked about with Giannis about 10 minutes ago. Is because he doesn't want to get fouled. He doesn't want to go to the free throw line because he's not it's all mental errors right now. He's so in his own head about these free throws. And it's so frustrating because I could go up to the free throw line right now and give you a 4 out of 10 free throws. I could shoot 50% from the free throw line. I haven't played basketball since I was in 9th grade. And I could go up there and do that for you. I just don't understand how he's so bad at free throw shooting. It nauseates me. And just not being aggressive offensively, it's ridiculous. You can say what you will about how the series really changed when he started guarding Trae Young on defense. Obviously, great there. He's a great defender. There's no questions about that. But there's 2 sides of the floor, as we always talk about. We talked about that more for offensive players. There's both sides of the floor. They got to play a little defense. He's got to play a little fucking offense. instead of dishing the ball out, instead of waiting for Seth Curry to come around the screen and give the ball to him, you gotta drive to the basket, dude. You're 6'10". You are 6'10". The Hawks cannot guard the paint. Go to the fucking basket. And then Tobias Harris, look, he's been pretty solid this series outside of the last two fourth quarters and all of Game 5. Game 4 and Game 5 combined, I don't think he scored in either fourth quarter. And in Game 5, he was atrocious the entire game. I think that's more of an anomaly than anything. But if he doesn't come out and play well tonight, then people are going to be back on his back. And the Sixers, I mean, this is embarrassing for me as a fan and for them as a franchise, because you're going to go through this whole process and you get to the 1 seed this year and you are the favored team in the Eastern Conference outside of Brooklyn to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And you're having trouble with the Atlanta Hawks, a team that you've been shitting on all year, Hunter. The Atlanta freaking Hawks is who you're having trouble with. I mean, it makes me so pissed off because it just shouldn't be happening. And it's not even. I don't know. That's my rant.
Bravo, man. Bravo. I was funny. I was like, kind of do my inner Saul, like, let's play a game of who's the most to blame for the Sixers. I think you definitely hit it on the nail. Doc Rivers, unfortunately, has a history of choking leads. He has done it with his Clippers. He's done it with his Celtics. This is kind of unfortunately who Doc Rivers is. He's a very good head coach. Does have an NBA championship to show for it, so it's not like his formula has never won. But I will say that he's definitely kind of botched this one a little bit here. But I want to give some accountability to the players. The Sixers have 3 All-NBA defensive players, Matt, and let up 40 fucking points in the fourth quarter to the Atlanta Hawks. Lou Williams was cooking them motherfuckers like it was 2017 out here. Like he was on the Clippers again, getting buckets. This guy is probably the worst year of his career, was contemplating retirement, and yet this guy, and then Trae Young's like, it's okay, I got it from here, drops 13 on him too. And Ben Simmons, I can't think of a player who is an All-NBA caliber player who is worse in the fourth quarter in NBA history than Ben Simmons. This dude sucks when the stakes are the highest. Like, he is terrible. How do you shoot the ball 4 times in 38 minutes, Matt, and you're getting paid like a superstar? What is that? How do you do that? Like,
Hunter, everything that you have said is just exactly what has been in my inner monologue for the past 2 weeks. I don't get it. I don't understand how Ben Simmons is this apprehensive in everything he does offensively. He's apprehensive about everything. I don't get it. And if the Sixers don't win this game tonight, it's going to be Ben Simmons' last game in the Sixers uniform. It is going to be.
Well, I will get into that a little
It's
bit
going
later.
to be. No, it's going to be.
All right. Well, let's ask it now then, Matt. Do you think the Sixers were stupid for not trading for Harden?
That's tough because no, I don't think so, because he's just been too injured all year. And you would still be having the same hamstring problems that he's having right now, and then you'd be hindered in the rest of your lineup too, because you wouldn't have a healthy point guard. They probably wouldn't have the 1 seed right now if they traded Ben Simmons and if Harden was hurt for most of the year. So in terms of that, no, but a healthy James Harden, yeah, they fucked up. Yeah, they should have taken.
All right. Well, let me say this though, because one, I know this year he hasn't been healthy as much, but like James Harden's typically a guy who will play 82 games a year. Like he typically, if you watch him with those Houston teams, he's normally playing like 75 plus games every single year. He's as durable as it comes, and he's typically up there in like minutes per game, one of the highest usage rates in NBA history, and is a great passer. You can even argue as good, if not better, than Ben Simmons at passing. We just didn't see it as much in Houston because they had that just absolutely toxic offense, but like, and can drop 30, 35 a game. Yeah, I think they were pretty dumb not to trade for James Harden. Even at the time, I was like,
and because because his game just complements Embiid so well too, because you need a second ISO scorer along with Embiid and somebody who can also dish it to him in the post. Harden was wrongfully ostracized as part of this, Houston offense because they were like, oh, he's a selfish player. He's a selfish player. No, that Houston offense just sucked. So when he got to Brooklyn, you saw how unselfish a player he was, how he is able to share the court with 2 other all-stars, with 2 other superstar caliber guys, getting triple-doubles, still getting 10-plus assists. I think he still averaged double-digits assists this year. He's a guy that's willing to share the ball. He would be able to share the court with Embiid, and he's also fits that offense so much better. Now, defensively, you're obviously taking a huge hit, but assuming in that trade you don't also give him Matisse Thybulle, you still have a great offensive or great defensive player, Matisse Thybulle. You could stick on Trae Young in this series. I don't know. My brain is going to combust if I start thinking about this too much. But yes, if you're getting a healthy Harden, yes, I think the Sixers made a mistake in not trading for Harden.
Well, you also don't trade for Harden for 1 year, Matt, either. It's not like a 1 year rental with James Harden.
Yeah.
So that is a what you call a long-term investment. Keep throwing accounting principles in here while I'm at it, right? But anyways, though, oh man, where do I begin? Well, Ben Simmons didn't really do a good job guarding Trae Young yesterday or this whole series. Trae Young has kind of gone wherever the fuck he wanted against the Sixers and had a playoff career high 39 yesterday and absolutely took over that game. I also think with Embiid, while he has been very good this series, it's kind of the same thing. Like you in the first half, had like 24 points or something like that, or whatever he had. He dominated, right? Just absolutely dominated, did what he wanted. Clint Capella is a good defensive player, but Embiid's got like 60 pounds. He's got that dump truck there in the fucking back his ass down. So I don't understand. Like Embiid's like, oh, I'm gonna shoot mid-range shots. Oh, I'm gonna handle on the outside. Like, no, get your ass in the paint and get a fucking bucket. Why are you not doing that? Like, just
I think
that's why we've won these games.
Well, see, you brought up the point where he's having great first halves and not so much in the second half. I think that has more to do with the fact that he's playing hurt. I mean, let's remember he's playing on a torn meniscus. So I think he's getting tired because Doc Rivers also, too, again with his lineups, he's playing him the entire first quarter and then having him sit for 6 minutes in the second quarter and then playing the rest of the second quarter, having him play the entire third quarter. Embiid's getting a lot of minutes on a torn meniscus. So I think, I'm not a guy that likes to make excuses about, getting tired and stuff like this, especially with Embiid, because he used to be one of the most unhealthy players in the year, and I was sick of it. But I don't know if you can necessarily make that argument for him right now because he's playing on a torn meniscus. He's playing hurt, and he's still giving you 35 points a night. And, I know a lot of it is in the first half and not a lot of it is in the second half, but I think it's also on the Sixers too. It's on the other Sixers role players because Embiid knows if he doesn't step up in the first half, they're not going to be in the game to begin with. And that's why I think he's kind of falling off in the second half because he's like, all right, somebody else take over now. I took over in the first half, and he's still getting no help in the second half.
Yeah, I do. You have to applaud Joel Embiid for playing on torn meniscus here and playing pretty well. I do think he is not the main reason they are playing bad. But Tobias Harris, he's got to step up too. You can't score 4 fucking points and be getting paid $30 million a year. And, Tobias is my guy. Long Island represent, of course, Suffolk County stand up. But I mean, come on, man. Danny Green, of course, that is a loss. He is a good defensive player and a veteran who has won 3 different championships with 3 different teams. Like, that is obviously a loss they have, but not one they can't overcome. I do want to, talk a little bit more about the Hawks here, too, because this was a team that a lot of people didn't even think they were going to beat the Knicks. I mean, I did. I didn't think the Knicks were all that good. They were not built for the playoffs. Atlanta has been one of the hottest teams in the NBA, a team that I was very wrong on. But I was right on them for a while, Matt, until Nate McMillan proved that he's probably one of the best coaches in the NBA right now. He literally took a team that was absolutely struggling, probably wasn't even going to make the freaking play-in tournament, to a team that might, strike lightning in a bottle, make the NBA Finals potentially if a couple of things go their way. Like, how has this team really been able to kind of dominate this series, Matt, at least these last couple of games, and be able to kind of take a lead in the series?
Well, I think Nate McMillan has severely outcoached Doc Rivers in the series, by a lot. He has made the adjustments necessary. He's come back in Game 4 from 18 points down, and in Game 5, 26 points down. This team just has no quit in them. And credit to them, they've really taken advantage of a lazy Sixers team, quite frankly, and lazy coaching from the Sixers coaching staff. And the Hawks have been really, really good at coming back because they know that they're not supposed to win this series. They know that this is probably too early for them to start competing for the Eastern Conference Finals. They know this is all too early for them, and they don't care. And they're playing much more carefree than the Sixers are, and I think now they know they are convinced that they are a better team than the Sixers, even if, on paper maybe they aren't a better team than the Sixers, but I think they are convinced that they think they are a better team than the Sixers. And credit Nate McMillan for that. He's been a great fit for Atlanta because he's an offensive-minded guy, and this team is obviously very, very offensive heavy. They're not going to play a lot of overwhelming defense. But Nate McMillan has done what he had to do and has really, really gotten them in a great situation for the second half of this season and all through the playoffs so far.
Do have not crazy, but some breaking news. Kyrie Irving has officially been ruled out for Game 7. I think we expected that, but Steve Nash just announced that as well. So we now know for a fact that the big three of Brooklyn will not be all playing come tomorrow. But I think that was kind of expected at this point. But let's also shout out, the fans here in the chat. Hunter saying here that I tuned in to listen to Ski talk about the Sixers. Definitely always fun, especially after they lose. Kelly Warner saying anyone a PSSN pickup game could do better than Ben Simmons at the line. I'm not sure about everyone, but I definitely think majority probably could. I also say embarrassing is an understatement. I'm assuming that was when you were going on your rant about that Game 5 struggles that they had. Andrew here saying Trae Young plays with no honor. All right. I'm not going to put you on blast, Andrew, in particular here, but I do want to say this. Trae Young, this dude has been so heavily criticized by everyone. And remember, I went on a podcast talking about how Trae Young does not get the respect this dude deserves. He has been absolutely phenomenal. And it's not his fault that he's responding to everybody bashing on him on social media. The Knicks literally booing him and saying all these things. And all he does is just shut up and put up numbers and get wins. This Hawks team is obviously, like we said, outperformed what I think any of us thought, including me. I was the biggest Hawks pessimist, and they have proved me wrong, and I will blatantly admit that and own up to that. But the Hawks have been absolutely great this year. Trae Young's been an absolute animal, and he's been one of the most valuable players in the playoffs. I'm sick and tired of people just shitting on this guy.
Well, I will say Trae Young, I think part where I think he's mentioning where it's like they play with no honor is because of the way he gets fouls. I think he gets more fouls. Dude, I understand he's playing the way that the rule book says he can play, but it's crap. Like the way I know he's taking advantage of. I know, but it's crap. I can't. And most of the fouls that get called on him are not fouls. They just get called because it's what he usually does. And there have been a couple plays with Matisse Thybulle in this series where he has not been fouled, and he has made it look like he got fouled. And Matisse will be like, "Well, I didn't do anything. I'm just standing straight up. I'm doing what I can." I will say there are other times where Trae Young has definitely gotten fouled, and he's gotten to the line because of it. And I think he's definitely taking advantage of the rule book. He's doing everything within the rules. I just don't think it's the right way to play. And I think after this year, it's going to be out. I think they're going to make a pretty major adjustment saying that you can't do this anymore. And I think it's crap. I think it's a very crappy way to play basketball. But he is taking advantage of the rules. Credit to him. But I think it's a shitty way to play.
I'm gonna be honest. I think you just sound like a salty Sixers fan right now. I'm sorry.
I am.
Don't hate the player. Don't hate the player. Hate the game, man. Trae Young's doing what he's doing, and I gotta say, Trae Young's one of the most innovative basketball players I've seen in quite some time. This dude was coming into the league doing moves that we've never really seen before. Nutmegging dudes left and right, through the step back jumpers. Like this dude was doing shit that no one was doing before him. And he always got something in his bag every single season, kind of like a James Harden when he was kind of coming up with the step back and stuff like that. Trae Young got a lot in his bag. They call him Ice Trae. He does the little shoulder thing for a reason here because that is a cold motherfucker. And I love it. I love that he's embracing the hate too. It's kind of like Reggie Miller-esque when people were hating. I love it. I love it. I think that I love it. I love that Trae Young's kind of embraced this evil guy. He didn't even ask for it. I think Trae Young honestly seems like a pretty nice dude, but everyone just loves to hate on him. I'm totally with it. It's fine with me.
I mean, it's just because it's just because he's playing my team. That's why I feel the way that I do. I mean, everything he's doing is within the rules, and it's okay to be cocky. It's okay to be confident, especially when you're as good as he is. But I can't stand when he does it just because I know it's against my team, and I can't stand it. But like I said, everything he's doing is within the rules, and he's obviously a great player. His passing is very underrated too. He's very good at getting assists.
I will, yeah. The dude can do it all. But I do want to say this though. Before we move on to our next topic, wrap things up here. Who do you think's winning Game 6, Matt? And if you don't think it's the Hawks, who do you think's winning the series? Putting you on the spot.
I don't know how you can watch the Sixers the last two games get out to these huge leads and not be able to hold them. I don't know how you can watch that game on Wednesday night and see them blow a 26-point lead and see how deflated they were in the fourth quarter and how much swag the Hawks were playing with and how much better they were and how much more confident they were in the Sixers, and then go into Game 6 and say the Sixers are going to win this game. I would be shocked if the Sixers win tonight. Quite frankly, I would be shocked if the Sixers win tonight and if they win this series, because the Hawks they're playing with a cockiness and a swagger and confidence about them that I just don't. I know at the core and in my heart that the Sixers are a better team than the Hawks. I know that they are. On paper, they are a better team. But right now, the Hawks are playing better, playing more carefree, and playing with more confidence than the Sixers. And the Sixers just right now don't have it. And you saw it at the end of Game 5 when they fell apart and they did nothing to stop it.
I'm going to say that I'm going to go a little bold. I'm going to say that Philly wins tonight, but I'm going to say the Hawks win the series, which I know is kind of contradictory because both teams have proven they can win on the road. I think that the Sixers do have a bounce-back game tonight. I think that, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I think Ben Simmons, it's hard to tell with him. All right, Matt, can you please admit that Donovan Mitchell is better than Ben Simmons? Because I'm sick and tired of this debate with you.
No, fuck Donovan Mitchell. I hate that.
Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me.
I can't stand. I can't stand the Utah Jazz in general. I can't stand Donovan Mitchell. I can't stand Rudy Gobert. I will not say that. But Connor, clearly you have not been rooted in Philadelphia sports as much as I have. You don't know how this goes. The Sixers are. I mean, it would be pretty Sixers of them to win tonight and then lose Game 7 at home.
That's why this gonna happen.
You get But I have no confidence in the Sixers right now. They're going to lose. I'm setting myself up for the failure right now. I don't want to get my feelings hurt. I know they're going to lose.
Also, I love this comment Kelly just left. What's scary is if the Sixers somehow win this series and then keep playing.
That's true. That's true, Kelly. I can't believe I have to watch more Sixers games. That would be horrifying.
Anyways, though, we're going to talk about a guy who is better than Ben Simmons. That's Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz. They're going to be in a winner-go-home situation tonight against the Clippers. And I'm going to put the camera on me here because, unfortunately, I have to swallow my own words a little bit here. Paul George, I know I have hated on you quite a bit. It's a lot of fun to do it, but God damn it, you probably had the best game of your entire career in Game 5. 37 points without Kawhi Leonard. Who even knows if he's coming back? I got to give it up for you one time because you finally rang the bell once in your career. You finally stepped up in the playoffs. You played pretty well in the playoffs for the most part, and you're proving the haters wrong. So I want to give you the credit where it is due. But Matt, I want to ask you this. I know the Clippers were able to win Game 5 and now take the lead in this series. But do you trust this team both moving forward in this series and then moving forward potentially without Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs?
No. I mean, they won a game, Game 5 on Wednesday night without Kawhi. It was good for them. Paul George, as you said, played really well. Some of the role players played really well. But do I trust them to do that consistently without Kawhi Leonard, who's a first-team All-NBA player this year? No, I don't. Kawhi is a great defensive player. He gets you every bucket you need him to get on offense. He is why they are where they are right now. The Clippers are a solid team without him, but they are not a great team. They're not an elite team. They're not an NBA championship team without Kawhi Leonard. It's that simple.
I agree. I don't think that they can advance to the NBA Finals without Kawhi. Apparently, it's an ACL injury. Assuming not torn, but anytime you hear ACL injury, I think your heart immediately drops, Matt, because we've seen that really derail the careers of many players or even really end careers of many players as well. Especially Kawhi, who's had this injury history since San Antonio. So that's definitely not good to hear if you're a Clippers fan. If there are any Clippers fans out there, that's also debatable. But anyways, though, do you think that the Clippers can win this series, though, without Kawhi Leonard?
I mean, they're up 3-2. I think if they don't win tonight, I think the Jazz win in 7. But I think they certainly have a chance to win tonight. They're at home. They've won both games at home in this series. If Paul George continues to play the way he has in this series in the last 3 games, and I think, yes, they can definitely win tonight. But if the Jazz do win tonight, I think the Jazz win this series in 7.
I got Andrew Bond here says he's afraid to admit Gobert's more just a tree. Admit he's a defensive beast.
No. Rudy Gobert is the most fraudulent defensive player of the year ever. 3-time defensive player of the year, and yet he gets dunked on more than anybody else I've ever seen in my entire life. No. Absolutely not.
Yeah. All right, yeah. We all know how you feel about Rudy Gobert, Matt.
Fuck Rudy Gobert. He sucks. I can't stand him.
Yeah, a guy who will never be a guest appearance on this podcast. If he ever, he definitely will not be on the podcast anytime soon. We have killed any opportunities.
I hate him.
Unless he just wants to get into a big fight. I doubt he comes on. Kind of like how Baker Mayfield went on Colin Cowherd and doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
But
It would be
anyways, though, yeah, it might be worse. Things might get thrown virtually. Things might break. I don't know. Crying. I don't know how that one's gonna go. Anyways, though, I low key think the Clippers are winning tonight. I think they're gonna win. I think that I look at this team and Paul George is doing what he's supposed to be doing, right? But the Jazz just don't they're a pretty good defensive team and they're not playing a lick of defense, Matt, at all. And they're scoring fine with the Clippers, but they're not closing out these games well. Mike Conley, I believe, is still out, unless I don't know if they ruled him out yet for Game 6 or not, but I guess we'll wait and see. But I think with this Clippers team, it's the other guys too. Like Reggie Jackson has been phenomenal for the Clippers during this time. Even like Nick Batum has given them some solid minutes. They're getting good minutes from their bench. Luke Kennard's finally playing some. Marcus Morris is finally showing up for this team.
Has been awesome. Marcus Morris has been awesome.
He's been awesome these last couple of games after being MIA for the first, 7, 8, 9 games of the playoffs. So the fact that they're getting all this bench production, the Clippers, this is probably the most frustrating team to watch in the NBA, or one of them, because on paper, they should be a championship team. They should be. With the Lakers getting out, they should be thinking like, this is our year. But at the same, and they're playing like it recently, Matt. But at the same time, though, you look at this team and you're just like, damn. But they also did blow a 3-1 lead last year, and damn, there's games where they just don't show up, and you're like, what the fuck happened? It is so hard to gauge this team. But I do think right now they are, basketball is a game of peaks and valleys. That is what Dave Scholler, my friend's dad, once said to me. And right now, they're at their peaks. This is peak Clippers. They're playing their best basketball they have in quite some time, even without Kawhi Leonard. But I do think that they will get smoked by the Suns in the conference finals. So that's my prediction.
I think the Suns are coming out of the West no matter what happens. Whether the Jazz get there or the Clippers get to the Western Conference Finals, it doesn't matter. The Suns are winning, especially if Chris Paul is out of COVID protocols at that point. I think the Suns are the best team in the West, and I think they would give a pretty good series to whoever they play in the NBA Finals, whether it be Brooklyn, Philly, or Milwaukee, or Atlanta. I think Phoenix is probably the most well-rounded team in the West. They can shoot the lights out from 3. They play pretty solid defense. They don't have a hole in that team. They have a solid bench and they have a solid starting 5. They have DeAndre Ayton. Yeah, DeAndre Ayton has been fantastic since we called him out a couple months ago on the podcast. He's been awesome. He's really coming to his own, especially in the playoffs. I think this Suns team is legit.
Yeah, ball don't lie. The podcast where you get called out, they listen, and then most importantly, they listen because we know they listen, and then they go out there and hoop. We just keep it real here. But let's talk about it, Matt. Let's talk about this Suns team because Chris Paul apparently got COVID. Apparently he did get his ouchie back in February. So it wasn't like Chris Paul didn't get vaccinated or anything like that. Of course, if you do get vaccinated, there still is a chance that you can get COVID. It's not 100% in terms of getting sick, I guess. Lack of a medical term here. Clearly, we went to the College of Communications, not the College of Medicine here at Penn State, as I am now a Penn State alumni, just like you, Matt. But to keep it buck here, how do you think that the Suns can hold out without Chris Paul? Because they may not have him for the first couple of games, and if so, we don't know how healthy he's going to be.
I think Chris Paul is the difference for this team. I think, if they don't have a healthy Chris Paul, assuming, he's not back for the beginning of that series, maybe he misses 2 or 3 games in that series, I think the Suns could be screwed, kind of. I think he's the key to this team. He's the guy that runs the engine. He's the guy that starts the car for this team. Chris Paul is their guy. If he misses the first 2 or 3 games in the series, I think they could be screwed. No matter how well-rounded the rest of the team is, it doesn't matter if you don't have your guy, Chris Paul.
I will say they were able to kind of win Game 1 against the Lakers when Chris Paul got hurt as well. So they were able to kind of hold kind of stay even, if you will, and be able to kind of hold the ship up while Chris Paul was hurt with the shoulder injury. But Matt, I want to turn to you here because you got an interesting theory on Chris Paul and why he gets screwed over maybe more than any other player I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ghost of David Stern. Ever since David Stern rejected that Chris Paul to the Lakers trade, he has been screwed ever since. He keeps getting injured in the playoffs, even when he has a legit team around him. He got injured with the Clippers in the playoffs. He got injured with the Rockets in the playoffs, and they were one game away from beating the almighty Warriors and going to the NBA Finals. And now this. I mean, he gets COVID, even though he already has the vaccine. I mean, that's just incredible. That is literally a ghost following you around. And David Stern, he just won't let Chris Paul be happy.
It's ridiculous. I don't understand this guy. I feel so bad for him. I've never seen a guy get more screwed over with injuries at the worst time than Chris Paul. Like it doesn't matter what team he's on. It doesn't matter like what point of his career or what the series is looking like. He just
because
he's
been a pretty consistently healthy guy throughout the regular season throughout
he's
the entirety of his
36
career.
and he's still playing like MVP basketball. Like I mean, we talk about LeBron doing it, but Chris Paul's doing it too. And yet at the same time, it's just like, what the hell is going on? I mean, I guess it's just unfortunate, man. But it will be interesting because if it's a Suns Clippers series, not only of course is there the Chris Paul versus his former team, but if there's a Kawhi and Chris Paul, I don't know, does that like cancel out maybe? And it's just like, all right, play ball, guys.
That's true. I mean, I think Devin Booker Paul George matchup is a pretty good matchup. To be honest, I think George could maybe match up with Devin Booker pretty well. Yeah, we all know how decent a defensive player he is. Former, front runner for Defensive Player of the Year. So I think it'll be a pretty good matchup if all things cancel out. But I think if Chris Paul comes back, if they play the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals, I think if Chris Paul comes back, I think the Suns go to the NBA Finals rather easily.
Yeah, shout out Andrew here saying the thought of the Hawks fraudulently beating the next Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals and playing the Suns without Chris Paul in the finals is nightmare fuel. Oh my god! Imagine the Hawks going to the NBA Finals. We're like, what the?
I don't want to.
Here?
I don't want to.
Oh my god! Oh man, Atlanta. I mean, they're playing really well. Give them credit, but I think if anyone thought entering this playoff, the Hawks would go to the final, and it might happen. Like if a couple things go their way, which they could beat the Bucks. They could do it. Like if they get there, it's crazy to think. Like, am I wrong? Like, I would say the Bucks are the favorite. No,
but series, if the Bucks beat the Nets tomorrow night and the Sixers don't make the Eastern Conference Finals, it's the biggest missed opportunity for the Sixers ever. Oh
my god, yeah.
If the Hawks wear the MLK jerseys tonight, by the way, they're winning. They're winning by 20.
Hunter also saying here, if the Hawks make the final this year, it's more of an asterisk than last year. Oh man. Yeah, there's been a lot of injuries and stuff this year. We talked about that earlier in the podcast. So the Hawks and the Bucks are two very healthy teams right now. They aren't really missing. I mean, the Hawks don't have like DeAndre Hunter, but that's like about it. They've seemed just fine without that. So, anyways, though, looking at the Phoenix Suns here, I think both of us think that they are the team that could get out of the Western Conference here. But I also want to talk about too long term here. So who is going to be your pick to be the NBA champion this year as it currently stands?
I think we get a Brooklyn Phoenix NBA Finals. And then I think when we get to that, it's a toss-up because if the Nets are fully healthy, I think the Nets win. But the Nets have not been fully healthy. Kyrie Irving, God knows what's going to happen with him. James Harden's hamstring has been a question mark since he got hurt in game 1 of this series. So I think if it's just Kevin Durant out there that's healthy for the Nets, and Lord even knows that that's not even, guaranteed that he's going to be healthy throughout the rest of the playoffs. Yeah, I think Phoenix could win it all. And I would, if the Sixers aren't going to win the NBA Finals this year, I would love to see Chris Paul hoist a trophy. I really would.
I'm going to say Phoenix wins it against Milwaukee. I don't feel great about that, but I think just based how the cards have fallen right now, I think that's how it's going to play out. Because I do think the Bucks would beat the Hawks pretty easily. I mean, you're throwing Drew Holiday on Trae Young. Like, that's definitely going to he's not going to have an easy time. No one does against Drew Holiday. He's probably the best defensive point guard in basketball. And then who the hell's guarding Giannis on the Hawks? Nobody. So that's why I think that. And if Chris Middleton's playing like the way he's been playing, Matt, like that's a huge weapon that the Bucks have at their disposal. They really haven't had consistently out of Chris Middleton in his entire career. So I think that the Bucks will face the Suns. I am borderline going to throw up saying that. And I think that the Phoenix right now is I guess the healthiest team because Chris Paul, if we assume he's back, oh my God, like this season, man, like No one can say healthy here. It's ridiculous because I'm like, oh, this team's healthy. Because if they're healthy, I'd say Brooklyn wins it. But now I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Goddamn, man. But anyways, though, let's talk about some fun things here. We're gonna give our all NBA team like we always do, Matt. This year, oh, sorry, picked the wrong little banner here. There's I made a whole lot of them. But we give our all NBA playoff moment teams, not just from this year, but in general, all time. Some of our favorite moments that we witnessed. In case you guys don't watch the podcast, but it seems like all of you in the comments probably have watched it at some point in your lives. You know, we always give these all NBA teams. But Matt, I'll let you go first. And if you guys have any all NBA moments you want to, we'll shout them out here on this podcast also. But Matt, I always let you go first. Give us your first moment.
So for my boy Hunter Pearson in the chat, he's a big Spurs fan, so I'm going to start off with this, the most probably important playoff moment of the last 10 years. Rebound Bosch, back out to Allen, his three-pointer, bang! Ray Allen saves LeBron's career with that game-tying shot in Game 6. If he doesn't hit that shot, the Spurs win another championship, and the Heat only have one out of their big three run. And LeBron, maybe he's more questioned than he already is in terms of NBA Finals record. I think they'll put his record at 3-7. So I don't know, that's a big pain and suffering there from Hunter. Sorry, buddy, I had to. But yeah, that's probably the most influential moment of the past 10 years. Maybe the most clutch shot of all time in NBA history.
Yeah, I mean that definitely was probably one of the biggest moments we've ever seen in basketball history, especially modern basketball history. But I'm going to take us back a little bit and give some context to the situation as well. So in the 2000 NBA Finals, that was the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Indiana Pacers. Kobe Bryant missed most of Game 2 and all of Game 3 with a sprained ankle, but he was playing through it. Apparently was throbbing with pain. The dude could barely walk. Shaquille O'Neal fouls out of the game, and Kobe Bryant, 21 years old, that's literally how old I am right now, Matt, he is able to make two jumpers and make a reverse layup, which is 5.9 seconds left to edge out the Pacers without Shaq, get up 3-1 this series, and the Lakers ultimately get gentleman's sweep and win in 5. Now, this is a moment that a lot of people probably forget because it was so early in Kobe's career, but this is kind of where the Black Mamba came out, where it encompassed Kobe in every way, shape, or form, where he's fighting through this big injury, right? We have players right now who won't even play on a sprained ankle. He's going out there. He's doing his thing. He scores when the team needs him to, and ultimately starts off the legacy of him and Shaq in a sense. It was Shaq's first championship too, and really kicked off the three-peat here. And I know that's a bit of a homer pick here, but you know what? Definitely, probably the start of Kobe Bryant's legacy, which I think that is pretty important considering this dude was one of the greatest players to ever play basketball.
Yeah, I mean, you tell that story about Kobe playing on that bad of a sprained ankle, and LeBron's out here saying he'll never be 100% again off of a sprained ankle. But I digress. That's just Kobe Bryant in a nutshell. Hunter, fuck you. You're a piece of shit for bringing that up. Both of you, Hunters. The one in the comments and the one who put that on the screen, fuck both of you. I'm just going to move on to the next thing. This is probably the only good playoff moment in most recognizable playoff moment in Sixers playoff history.
Yep, I knew you were saying this one.
Iverson stepping over to Ron Lue. It was the only game that won that series. They had no business being in that series to the Lakers. The Lakers are so much better than the Sixers. They were just happy to be there. Allen Iverson, while the Lakers did win the series really easily, when you talk about the 2001 NBA Finals, I think that's probably the moment that everybody kind of remembers, is because that's just so iconic. Iverson hitting that step back over to Ron Lue and stepping over him. It's the most cocky play of all time. It's incredible, and I love it. It's everything about Philly that I love. Everything about Iverson that I love as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk about Ivan, I mean, I guess the practice moment and that cross up is probably the two first things you think of Allen Iverson when you bring up Allen Iverson. And yeah, even though the fact that they lost that NBA Finals, you talk about a guy who single-handedly carried his team. I believe he was MVP that season as well, Matt.
He was.
He single-handedly carried a team to the finals. That who's their second best player on the team?
Yeah, he averaged 40 points per game. Yeah. He averaged 40 points per game in that playoff. In those playoffs, just because he had to. Their second best scorer was Aaron fucking McKee.
Yeah, AI man. I wish he won a championship. I feel like people would talk about him more as being like a real all-time great. But like that dude did everything he could with what he was given, man. Some guys just aren't as fortunate being in as good situations. As Allen Iverson, unfortunately, kind of falls in that category. Next on my list, though, I'm going to go with another guy, heart over height. That's going to be Isaiah Thomas, scoring 53 points, following his sister's death. In case you guys didn't know, I believe the year was 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Isaiah Thomas's younger sister died in a car crash, and right before the playoffs started. And obviously, Isaiah Thomas was kind of going through a lot at this time. And then this was in, I believe, Game 2 against the Washington Wizards. They ended up winning this game. He scored 29 points, Matt, in the fourth quarter alone. Like, Isaiah Thomas was just absolutely different during this series. And also, too, Isaiah Thomas, in the game before, chipped his tooth. He was literally missing a tooth. So hear this. So he has to go to the hospital and get oral surgery done on his teeth, wear this mouthpiece all before Game 2 happens, like the day of. And then also, too, right before Game 1, he left Boston to go back to Washington, like the state of Washington, Seattle, where he's from, to go to his sister's funeral. Gets back into Boston at 4 a.m., 10 a.m. They have pregame walkthroughs for Game 1 of that series. Like, that's pretty insane, man. Like, this dude probably had one of the roughest, like, days, weeks, whatever you want to say, of any person in general, going through all this stuff, but yet quite literally left it all on the court, scoring 53 points, and they did eventually win that series as well. Definitely very emotional as a fan, but also I'm glad Isaiah Thomas, was able to capitalize on a very traumatic situation in his life.
Yeah, it's unfortunate the way his career has turned out since then, but that playoff run that he had that year was special, and the way he played that year was special. I mean, he was an MVP caliber player that entire year, and the way he played in those playoffs was also second to none. He was incredible. To be able to play like that after, such horrible circumstance, it was incredible. I mean, he was, I don't even understand how he did that, playing with that heavy of a heart, and playing that well. 53 points. I mean, that's ridiculous. He's, a special player, only a special kind of guy, can put up those kind of stats and play, that way after something that traumatic happened to them.
Let's not forget this too. A little fun fact here. So this is off the top, but the only other Celtic to finish top 5 in MVP voting since Larry Bird was Kevin Garnett one time. That's it. Isaiah Thomas was the only other person who's done it since. I mean, maybe Jason Tatum will do it one day. But so like Isaiah Thomas that season was so freaking good and was quite literally one of the best players in the league that year. And it is kind of a shame, like you said, the way his career has gone. But who or what other moment makes the list for you here?
So my third thing on the list here is obviously another one of the most influential things of the past 10 years and maybe of all time is LeBron blocking Iguodala and then the Kyrie 3 to win the series for the Cavs to complete the 3-1 comeback over the best regular season team of all time, the 73-9 Warriors. It's one of the most synonymous things, with LeBron's career of all time is that block, and then, completing that comeback. SportsCenter and ESPN find a way to repost that on Instagram probably once a month. But it's truly an incredible play. And as much as LeBron's landers we've done in this podcast, particularly on me, that's an incredible play. One that I'll never forget. One that I'll never forget watching because I watched it at one of my friends from high school. I watched it at his house, and he's a Warriors fan, and he lost his mind. He said, "That's a goaltend. It's a goaltend." And I was like, "It's not a goaltend, man." It was one of the most incredible blocks of all time and one of the greatest plays in NBA history.
Yeah, and also blocked by James. Like,
yeah,
the famous Mike Green call.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean that whole sequence was pretty insane. And like you said, probably capped off the greatest comeback in NBA history right there. But next on my list is also going to be a comeback. This might be a bit of recency bias, but I don't want to get a little lost here with like how impressive this was. Now, as the Denver Nuggets coming back down from 3-1, not once, but twice in the bubble. We've never seen a team do it twice in NBA history. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, what they were able to do in that series was absolutely phenomenal. Beating two very good teams, too, in Utah and the Clippers. So it wasn't like they were doing this against teams that were, like, honestly not that good. And they were, even in those games they were down, they still lost them really close. and then they were able to finally catapult twice, although they did run into my Los Angeles Lakers and lost in 5. Just saying, still the defending champs, Matt. They are still the defending champs. Not much longer, but I got to ride that wave while I still can. But I will say that is really impressive. I'm not sure it's honestly ever going to be done again or done again quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, it's how much of it does it say about the Nuggets of last season, and how much of it does it say, how much do you factor in the bubble, how much do you factor in, the Jazz and Clippers as choke artists, like how much of that do you factor in? But I do think you have to give the Nuggets their credit. Truly incredible comebacks and back-to-back series. Nonetheless, I mean that's pretty crazy. And I remember Jamal Murray playing out of his mind. Jokic wasn't even, Jokic was Jokic, but Murray was one of the guys I remember the most. It was just not a couple months ago, but 9 or 10 months ago that this happened. So it was great to watch. Jamal Murray was special.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, even like the game within a game, what Murray and Mitchell are able to do against each other. I mean, it's something that Ben Simmons couldn't do if he was in the same situation. I'm just saying.
Whatever, man.
Yeah, I don't think he would be able to do that, unlike Donovan Mitchell. But anyways, though, what else is on your list here?
So this is kind of a 2-for-1. So it's both Michael Jordan. We've been doing a lot of recent moments. So we're going to throw it back here to the 80s and 90s. So I think the Craig Elo shot was in 1990 or 1989. And then, of course, the second one is Michael Jordan's shot to win his 6th title against Utah. Both of those incredible, iconic shots. I mean, it's just classic Michael Jordan. Won the ball in his hands at the end of the game on the line, series on the line. He was able to hit both of those shots. With 2 of the most iconic shots of NBA history. The first one with Craig Elo, MJ and Doug Collins running around the court chasing each other. Is one of my favorite stories in The Last Dance. And then the shot to win the 6th title. I mean, it's just iconic. It's just, I mean, you see that picture all the time. It's one of the most incredible moments ever.
Yeah, I can't help but laugh at this college all NBA playoff moments with Jokic. For sure, Serbian gun runners almost hopped on the court. Yeah, I'm glad they did it because they might have got a little bit out of hand there, Andrew, had they had been able to get their hands on Devin Booker or any of the Phoenix Suns players.
That was crazy. That was a crazy clip.
Oh my god! And then like the Phoenix Suns guy,
they're pretty close to the court.
And then like Phoenix Suns, like the fan, like beat the crap out of the Nuggets fan, and Devin Booker's like, I'm sitting courtside next game.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh man, gotta love these NBA playoff moments, man. But I'm also gonna be
great to have fans back.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they were getting a little wild out there. It's getting a little wild. Don't mess with the players like that. But when you're messing with each other, it's funny and we all love it. That's fair game. But anyways, though, I'm also gonna throw it back here too, a bit in the time machine, and talk about Isaiah Thomas, the older Isaiah Thomas, for the Detroit Pistons. And so to avoid my Laker bias here, this was against the Lakers in the 1988 NBA Finals. So Isaiah Thomas, this is a little bit similar to what Kobe, but he had a sprained ankle. And if you watch that game, Matt, he is literally hopping on one leg the entire time. And to this day, his 25 points that he scored in the 3rd quarter is the most amount of points in any quarter in an NBA Finals game in NBA history. To this day, and that's when players weren't scoring as many points, Matt. To this day, Isaiah Thomas still has that record. A guy who won 2 NBA championships. Another guy who, of course, got left off the dream team. People hated him and stuff. And, he's kind of annoying as an analyst. Not the best coach or front office, but hell of a player, man. Hell of a player, Zeke was. Yeah. And to score 43 points in total that game, extend that to a Game 7, which the Lakers did end up winning that series. But Isaiah Thomas quite literally was a player who always put it all on the court. And, of course, I had to throw it back with this one.
Yeah, I mean, Isaiah Thomas was incredible. I remember watching that, the Bad Boys ESPN 30 for 30 documentary. One of the most incredible feats ever. And, to have that record still stand 25 points in a quarter, and he did that on one ankle. And I remember I can vividly see him hobbling up and down the court after he makes a layup. It was incredible.
Yep. Also, Hunter here bringing up Russell Westbrook yelling at the babies in the bubble, or yelling at Rondo's like brother or something like that.
Rondo's cousin or something like that. Yeah.
And he, always need to keep the intensity, even against infants who would have mocked him if they could speak. One of those infants would have been Matt Szczypiorski being like, "Hey man, how do you don't shoot 5 of 30 from the field?"
Amen, dude. Russell Westbrook stinks.
Stat patter
I'll
Westbrook.
stand by that. Yeah, dude, he's terrible. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think we really brought up Westbrook in this podcast yet. And his name typically gets dropped here. So
yeah, fuck Russell Westbrook. He sucks. That's the first time I've been able to say this on this podcast.
Yeah. We're not being held back by the Penn State University anymore. Anyways, though, you just gave yours, right?
No, you just gave yours. So
I just gave mine. All right, go ahead.
So this is my last one. Yeah.
Yep.
So my last one is also a 2-for-1, but it's Damian Lillard, his series winners, both of them. The first one against the Rockets, 0.9 seconds left, wins the Portland their first series, and I think at the time, 10 or 15 years. Incredible shot. That was when Damian Lillard wasn't Damian Lillard yet. And then, of course, his step back on Paul George, which was just hilarious because Paul George and Damian Lillard and Russell Westbrook had been talking shit to each other all series. Him waving goodbye, it's iconic. His brother tackling him, coming off his courtside seats and joining the dog pile with like Enes Kanter and all those guys. But it's that's a recent one too. But it just had so much swag. I wish Damian Lillard was a Sixer so bad. I'd love him so much.
I would love him as a Laker too. Wear that purple and gold one time. Please come to the team. Or Bradley Beal. I'll take either of them. Please and thank you. But anyways, though, yeah, Damian Lillard, even this series, remember he had, I forgot what game, maybe game 5 where he had a shot that sent it to OT and then the one that sent it to double OT. Like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Like this dude.
And the
like,
game was on NBA TV.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Lakers were getting like clapped by like 30. I'm like, why is this even the game? Can we change this, please? I don't want to watch this anymore. Anyway, though, last but not least on my list, it's funny here because Hunter brought up the 2003 Game 6 when Tim Duncan recorded a quadruple double to win a finals, but stats only show 8 blocks in the game. Film digresses. But anyways, though, I'm going to talk about Derek Fisher hitting the shot with 0.4 seconds left in the game against the San Antonio Spurs. Game 5 of the 2004 Conference Finals, which the Lakers did end up winning that one. So Tim Duncan, though, hit a pretty ridiculous shot with Shaq all up in his monk business. It was like a fadeaway jumper, hits it with 0.4 left. Everyone thinks the ball is going into Kobe. It gets inbounded to Derek Fisher, 0.4, flick of the wrist. That shit went in. And then that ends that game there. Probably one of the craziest transitions that we have. This is unbelievable. Oh, my God. Sorry, you gotta realize this. Matt knows this, too. Anytime I see a perfect segue into a transition, I take that every single time. So yeah, I appreciate it, Hunter. But nothing against you, man. We got the same name. We got to look out for each other out here. But anyways, though, that's probably one of the craziest shots we've ever seen. One of the craziest sequences we've seen in NBA playoffs history.
Yeah, I love the I think it was like a NBA playoffs commercial or something where it's like from the perspective of the ball, and that's like the main thing I remember of that shot. They made a commercial about it, and the ball gets shot from Fisher, and he's like, all I can see is fish rim, Fisher rim, and then he goes in, and I think it's a hilarious commercial. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about at this point. I might just be talking to myself, but and one of the most iconic shots, and one of the craziest shots ever. So random. Derek Fisher of all people, 0.4 seconds of that. I feel like it's not even physically possible to get a shot off in 0.4 seconds, especially from the distance he did it, falling away, step back. I mean, it was. I don't even know.
The Tim Duncan shot was insane too. Like literally both of them like happened right after the other, and you're just like, oh my God, like like two almost impossible shots both happened. Like Tim Duncan was like literally fading away to the left side, drills that thing, and like oh my man, like that was probably one of the craziest sequences in NBA playoffs history. But anyways, though, Matt. It was great. Glad we were able to do this again. It was funny because for people that didn't know, me and Matt always talk about basketball and stuff, and there was so much going on in the NBA, not even the playoffs, but all the coaching, firing, and stuff like that, all the drama. And we're like, you know what? We're talking to each other here. We got to give the people what they want, man. And we got to get back on this grind with this podcast. So it was awesome we were able to do this again on StreamYard this time, going live. The live comments definitely spiced things up. I don't know about you, Matt, but definitely made it a lot more exciting.
Yeah, it definitely did. Thank you guys, everyone who participated in the comment section. It made it a hell of a lot more fun. I also like being able to curse on this. That was also pretty fun. And also just want to shout out Al Horford for being in the news. If this is the last podcast I ever do with Hunter, thank you for that. That really got me through this getting to talk about Al Horford one more time. And fuck Russell Westbrook, too.
Yeah, and in case the people forgot, critically acclaimed, award-winning podcast right here, okay? And Matt also has one with his name on it, too. Had to bring out the silverware there. One of the pristine people, in case people forgot, the best podcast on Penn State Sports Night, or was, I guess. But anyways, though, who knows if we'll do this again? We'll see what the hell happens. Maybe we'll pop up here or there, what have you. But thank you all for tuning in. And, let's keep watching some goddamn basketball. Oh, and of course, Matt, give the people the slogan of the podcast before we sign off here.
That would be no team left behind, Hunter.
Not one.